Well, wouldn't you know it, we've hit 30. How incredible is that?
I haven't been 30 for a very, very long time, but it's great. It feels fantastic, Tony.
Well, you know what? I haven't been 30 for a long time either, and it does feel fantastic. So 30 episodes in of the Wayback Music Machine podcast. Very, very exciting.
I think it's amazing the truck has maintained itself for 30 episodes, 30 trips.
I think so too. It's still going strong, and it's got plenty of gas left in the tank, so to speak.
Well, happy anniversary, my friend. Happy anniversary.
Yes, you as well. And we've got something special planned today, folks. We're going to be doing more of a chart show. We were looking at the week that was in rock history, and I have to say, Aaron, this was not the greatest week in rock history. It just wasn't, So
yeah, it's kind of dull.
Yeah, sometimes, some days are diamonds and some are stones, as the song says.
Hey, John Denver.
That's right. And this week, the week that was a stone for sure. But so we decided to celebrate our 30th episode, we are going to do a special chart show instead. So are you ready to hit the road, my friend?
I'm always ready to hit the road, yes.
All right, let's go. Road trip time. Maps?
Check.
Snacks?
Double check.
Tunes?
Check.
I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Aaron Badgley.
And we are cruising the rock and roll highway in our Wayback Music Machine. Are you ready, my friend?
I sure am.
I have the feeling this is going to be the start of a great adventure.
Kind of a magical mystery tour.
Somehow I knew you were going to say that. So we've only got one trip today, and that's over the pond to London, England. And I love every time we visit London.
Well, I do too. And we're going in 1952, which means we can get some really good fish and chips.
Oh, that'll be fantastic. So,
yeah.
And you know what? Then we can, once we're done eating, we can see what the headlines were on the newspaper.
That's a good idea.
All right, here we go. So like we were saying at the beginning of the show, we've got a special episode today. We're doing a chart show. And Aaron, I know you're the chart guy, so what are we doing here today?
Well, as you know, I love charts. I love record charts, music charts. And what we're looking at, Tony, is the first ever UK pop chart that was published in there's a magazine called New Musical Express. So the staff in 1952, on November the 8th, they basically called 53 record shops and asked them to say, what's selling? What's selling? And from those 53 record shops came the first ever, well, it was supposed to be top 10, but it turned out to be top 12. But a couple of numbers like number 11 and number 8 and number 7, there's 2 songs per number, right? Ties.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm curious to see what's on there. So what was on that chart?
So I'm curious, I want to know how many you know. I mean, I looked at this chart and I knew most of them. There was a couple here that I kind of went, I'm not familiar with, but I knew the artists. So for example, number 12, Dexy's Midnight Runners sang about this guy named Johnny Ray.
Oh, yeah.
Poor old Johnny Ray.
Now, Walking My Baby Back Home is a great song.
Fantastic song. And do you like Johnny Ray?
I do.
Me too. I used to love that. What's that one? When You're Sweetheart,
Yeah.
Number 11, this surprised me. I don't know why, but Mario Lanza.
Yeah, Mario Lanza, the opera guy, right? So.
Yep. Who I think my mother would have, gladly sailed across the ocean to be with. Number 11, tied at number 11 with Mario Lanza. Do you know Max Bygraves?
I don't, actually. I'm looking at the title of this, though, The Cowpuncher's Cantata. What is that?
Well, Max Bygrave was a holdover from the old vaudeville and the old music halls in England. He was kind of a how's your uncle kind of thing, and he never really made it over here, but he was huge in the UK. That's an interesting song. I think you'll like it when I send you the playlist.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that one. Yeah.
I think you can wait. Vera Lynn has number 10 and number 9. Number 10 is Auf Wiedersehen, Sweetheart.
Yeah, that's a great song.
It is. You know that? It's a classic, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know the Homing Waltz.
I don't either. So again, when you put that on the list, I'm looking forward to hearing that one, actually.
I love her voice.
Me too. Me too.
Love her voice. Number 8. There's a tie at number 8. And I'm going to tell you right now, my mother had both of these 78s. And consequently, I still have them on 78.
Oh, nice.
Well, number 8 is Blue Tango by Ray Martin. And Doris Day and Frankie Lane, a duet, a song called Sugar Bush. And my mother's favorite singer, probably of all time, was Frankie Lane.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she loved Frankie.
And Doris Day was so great, wasn't she?
Oh, underrated. Her voice, fantastic.
Absolutely.
Look at here, Tony. Vera Lynn's back in the charts. Number 7 with Forget Me Not. Great song.
Mm-hmm.
And number 7, tied at number 7, is Frankie Lane. High Noon, Do Not Forsake Me. Oh, my darling. Love that song. Love the movie, too.
Yeah, what an interesting chart this is. Wow.
It's all over the place.
It sure is. Now, what's coming in at number 6 here?
It's just like, I don't know what's coming up next, right? Number 6 is, well, if you used to watch ER, I'm sure.
Yeah.
George Clooney's aunt, Rosemary Clooney, is number 6 with Half as Much.
I had no idea they were related. Is that ever cool?
Yeah, they are. That's his aunt. Seriously.
Oh, wow.
And she actually made an appearance in one of the episodes of ER. She was a patient, so.
Oh, neat.
Good, cool. Number 5, Guy Mitchell, Feet Up, Pat Him on the Popo.
What a great title.
Boy, that came to mean something different these days, eh?
Oh, for sure.
Less said the better.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going there.
No. No. Number 4, my favorite, Bing Crosby, and a beautiful song called The Isle of Innisfree, which is based on a poem by the wonderful Yeats. Nat King Cole comes in at number 3 with Somewhere Along the Way.
Oh, that's a great song.
Yeah. Number 2 is one of my all-time favorite songs, bar none. Joe Stafford and You Belong to Me.
Yeah, this is a fantastic song, isn't it?
I was always mesmerized by the opening lines. See the pyramids along the Nile, she's, love her. Number 1, which stayed at number 1 for 9 whole weeks, is, I don't know if he's a relative of yours or not, Al Martino. And Here in My Heart.
Oh, there you go. What a fascinating look at what was going on in the early 50s in the UK, isn't that?
Oh my gosh. Did you grow up with Al Martino?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, I know who Al Martino was, and I know a little bit of the music, but no, not a whole lot, no.
Oh, he was on in our house all the time.
Yeah, what a great list. So we're going to be focusing on this week, the 8th to the 14th of November, and we decided to take a look back and see throughout the years what was on the charts, like what albums and what songs hit number 1. And each of us picked a song and each of us picked an album. Now, what do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the albums or the songs?
Well, I want to say that I didn't consult with Tony. I just picked a song and an album. He picked a song and an album, and we both, for some reason, picked Elton John for albums.
Yeah, which I thought was a very cool coincidence.
Yeah, I did too. That's you see, Tony, we're on sync, man. We're on sync.
Oh, exactly. Well, why don't we do the albums first? Why don't you go first?
Oh, okay. Well, the album I picked was Elton John's 9th studio album called Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. And I picked this because, quite frankly, I bought that when it came out. I bought it the same day as Venus and Mars. Along the years, I lost my copy of the album. It disappeared. I was in a Value Village, and I saw it there for like $2, mint condition, with the 2 books and posters still inside.
Oh, wow.
So I bought it. And I forgot how good that album is. Do you know the album?
I do know the album. And Someone Saved My Life Tonight. What an unbelievable song, isn't it?
And an odd choice for a single. I didn't think that. It's very long. Well, it's not very long, but it's long.
Well, it's 6 minutes, right? It clocks in around 6 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the song. I've always loved that song. And I like the opening track, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. It's a concept album about, really him and Bernie Taupin, his co-writer, starting out in the 60s. It was also the first album in America's Billboard charts to enter the charts at number one.
Oh, wow.
Now, what makes that special, Tony, is that this was prior to streaming and downloading. That meant that 1.4 million people had to physically go and buy the record in stores to shoot that up the charts in the time it was released and the time the chart was published. So pretty incredible.
Well, and looking back on his career, actually, Elton John said this was probably their best album, right? Because none of these songs were written just with charts in mind or anything like that, right? They were just really autobiographical songs about their early career. And that comes through on the album.
I agree. Now, did you know there was a sequel?
Well, I did know there was a sequel, but I'd never heard it, and it didn't do very well, did it?
No, it bombed out. In 2006, it was called The Captain and the Kid. It wasn't bad. I don't think it's as bad as the reviews certainly indicated. I thought it was pretty good, but it didn't chart very high. But Elton had the last laugh because who's number one in England right now? Elton John.
Oh, isn't that amazing, eh? So I'm sure he just set another record with being number one, right?
He set a record because he's had a number one album in every decade, 70s, 80s, 90s, the early 2000s, 2000 teens, and now the 2020s.
Yeah, that's incredible. Talk about longevity, eh? Wow.
Yeah. What a career. So that was my choice. I love the album. I think I have to agree with Elton. I think it's his best album. And interestingly, I have to, because I get nerdy, the album that knocked it out of number one was Venus and Mars.
Oh, wow.
Paul McCartney knocking them out. So what you picked an Elton John? Oh, by the way, that was in 1975. So what album did you pick?
Well, I picked Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and I picked that, simply because it's probably his magnum opus, right? It's the one he's most known for. It came out on November 10th, 1973. It went to number one. And finally got knocked out of number one, though, in 74 by the Carpenters, of all people, eh? So how interesting is that?
Yeah, sad, right?
But this was his seventh studio album. And, like you, I found this one at a vinyl sale. And, I got it for a steal. And I can't even remember. I think I paid less than $10 for it. So that was fantastic.
I remember. Was that recently?
Yeah, that was, maybe a year ago.
Yeah, I remember when you got it. Yeah.
So this was originally supposed to be recorded in Jamaica, but they were having studio problems there, but they moved it to France. He was in Jamaica at the time. He was staying at the Pink Flamingo Hotel, and he wrote all the songs very, very quickly. Like this album was knocked out in a matter of weeks. It was amazing.
But so what's weird is that it wouldn't have benefited by being recorded in Jamaica. I don't think it's because it doesn't have that Jamaican feel to it. It's not like a reggae album.
Yeah, there's no reggae elements in it at all, really. But it was ended up being recorded in France, and this, was a monster, right? This album was the best-selling album in the U.S. in 1974.
Yeah,
and he actually had two number one albums in 74 too. He had Caribou as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he had three number one albums in total in that 1 year. He was, I think we forget how monumental he was in the 70s. He was huge.
Yeah, well, massive. He was the biggest selling recording artist of the 70s, wasn't
he? Indeed he was. Yeah, he was. And it's funny because I don't hear him on the radio all that often. And when I do, they always play his 80s stuff, which I'm not overly impressed by.
Oh.
But, it's funny because I still love his albums in the 70s. Are my favorite albums by him.
Oh, for sure. Now, do you have a track on this Goodbye Yellow Brick Road that you resonates with you more than any other?
Well, I know it's kind of trite, but the title track has always resonated with me more than any other song on the album. I really love that song.
Yeah, that is a fantastic song. Do you know Rick and I do a jazz cover of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and it actually really works. You wouldn't think that it would, but
I'd love to hear that. That would be awesome.
it's a neat version. I mean, there's some other great tracks on there. I absolutely.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite on the album?
Probably Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I love Benny and the Jets though too. My goodness, what a great song.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: do you think there's any? It's a double album, right?
Yeah.
There's no weak tracks on it, though.
I don't think there are any weak tracks. You know, another great one, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, has always been one of my favorite tunes as well. It's just fantastic.
Did you ever hear The Who do that?
Do Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting? No, I haven't.
Yeah. There was an album that came out in the 90s called Two Rooms, and it was a bunch of artists covering Elton John, right? And The Who did Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, and Kate Bush did Rocket Man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she did a great job of Rocket Man, that's another one of my all-time favorite Elton John songs.
Oh, are you going to put that Kate Bush version on the playlist?
I think I just might. I might put The Who, too.
Yeah,
right?
You should do that. I want to hear both of those. That'll be fantastic.
But I also like, I love Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, but I also thought that Funeral for a Friend is pretty... And Candle in the Wind, right? I mean, those two songs.
Well, and the way that Funeral for a Friend starts off that album is just so interesting, right?
Yeah. Brilliant album.
Now, what do you think? Should we take a break and then we'll talk about some of the number one singles?
I think it's a good idea.
All right, let's take a break and we'll be right back. You know, Aaron, our little show here has really taken off. And now as we hit episode 30, it's onwards and upwards, but there are some great ways that the fans who are listening can really help us out, aren't there?
Yes, a lot of, and actually it doesn't take a lot. It's very easy.
Well, that's right. So one of the first things you can do is just share one of our posts, let people know that you're listening and that you love the show. You can also leave us reviews, and I love reading reviews of the show.
Me too.
And finally, you can just ask us questions, or anything you want to know about the show. We'd be happy to answer, and we love interacting with our fans. So hopefully we hear from you soon.
Well, sharing is caring, and caring is sharing. And I'm trying to make this kind of into a rhyme. You're right. I love interacting with the fans, and please, by all means, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you.
That sounds great. So now, let's get back to the road trip. And we're back, and we're going to be talking now about some singles that went to number one this week in rock history. I'm going to throw in a little bit of Canadian content here. I love this guy. I know you love him too. And
I do.
Iconic musician, iconic former CBC host. We'll talk about that in a bit. But of course, I'm talking about Randy Bachman and BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive, this week, November 9th, 1974. And a classic song by them, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. I picked that one just because the backstory on that one is so interesting, right? Because the signature part of that song is the stuttering. And I didn't realize, I knew that Randy Bachman had written this, he was going to kind of tease his brother Gary because Gary was a stutterer. But I didn't realize that they had no intention of releasing this song. Did you?
But it's not unusual. You hear a lot of stories about, that was never intended to come out. And then when it comes out, it's huge.
Well, absolutely. So here's the backstory on this. And I love this. He was just fooling around. He heard some songs that he liked, and he just decided, he tried a guitar riff and started doing these lyrics, and they ended up recording it as what's called a work track. And a work track is something that you put on to test the microphones and to test the speaker layout and all that stuff, right? And so they call them work tracks. And he threw in the stutter just for fun, and the whole plan was he was going to send it to his brother Gary, because he was saying he and his brothers would tease each other mercilessly, as my brothers and I did. And he was just going to send it to his brother and say, hey, I'm going to release this, right? Anyway, so they did it as a work song, and they were recording their album called Not Fragile. And the studio heads were saying, well, there's not really a single on here. There's not really a hit single on here. The album's a little bit heavy. And then someone suggested, hey, let's use the work track. And Randy was like, no, that was kind of just a joke. But he said as soon as they put that track on, the studio exec's eyes lit up, as soon as he heard the beginning guitar. And then as soon as he heard the stuttering in it, he was over the moon. And he was like, that is the song. That is the song. And I was watching an interview earlier today with Randy Bachman, and he was saying he really didn't want to release it because his guitar wasn't in tune. And, there were a million things, because he's a perfectionist, right? A million things wrong with the song, but it ended up becoming a monster hit.
Oh, huge hit. And Not Fragile. And it brought Not Fragile into the number one position. People bought the album because that song was such a massive hit. And I remember in 1974, you couldn't turn on the radio without hearing that song.
Oh, absolutely. And the stuttering, now there were a few other things, because he was asked about the stuttering. I'm sure, I don't know if you could release a song today like this with a stuttering in it, but he was, like I said, he was just doing it because of his brother Gary. But the American Stuttering Association sent him an award. He actually got an award and named this the best stuttering song of all time by the American Stuttering Association. Can you believe that? And there are some great songs that have stuttering in them. Well, The Who, My Generation, for instance.
My Generation, yeah. Yeah. And this was not a ripoff of The Who.
No, he was accused of that, but he said, he had no intention of ripping off The Who. He was just fooling around in the studio and he had no intention of releasing the song. But
and what's funny is and this is thanks to you. You showed me a cover version by Burton Cummings.
Oh yeah,
which I don't know what to say, but it's really jazzy. It's odd, really.
But he did very odd.
He did the stuttering. He
threw the stuttering in, but if you can imagine this song being done as a slow jazz ballad with tinkling piano and big band.
Yeah.
It is something else. It kind of works in a weird sort of way. I mean, Burton Cummings has that type of voice though, that no matter what, right? In my opinion, he's got the golden voice and whatever he sings just works, but it was such an odd cover.
Well, I think that's the beauty of Burton Cummings, is you just never know what he's going to come up with next.
Yeah.
And he did a number of records with Bachman, right? I mean, I know they're the Guess Who, the History and the Guess Who, but for a time there was a Bachman Cummings band, wasn't there?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up, because I know they had their struggles, but then they reconciled. Well, and yeah.
Who hasn't? What bands haven't had struggles? With the exception of ABBA. No, just kidding. They've had struggles, folks. ABBA's had struggles.
But I know throughout the years, right, there have been a ton of Bachman and Cummings reunions.
Yeah, tons of them.
All over the place. And, even listening to this interview, which was fairly recent, I mean, Randy had nothing but respect for Burton Cummings, right? So
I bet the interview was not on the CBC.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to address that, okay? Because I chose this song because I wanted to address that whole controversy. So if people don't know it, well, you listen to Vinyl Tap, and I do as well. I think it is one of CBC's... Yeah, exactly, used to. I think it's one of CBC's best shows, and I think Randy Bachman, just by his pedigree, I mean, that guy knows everybody, has worked with everybody, unbelievable stories to tell, and has an encyclopedic knowledge of rock and pop music and other styles of music as well. I mean, he's a student, and so much to offer as a host. And the CBC canceled his show, and of course doing it out of political correctness, saying, I mean, what was their official explanation? We want some new voices to be given an opportunity. But, you can't help but thinking that, unfortunately, Randy, checked all the wrong boxes in terms of political correctness. And he, to his credit, he didn't go down lightly. Like, he pushed back and said, this is nuts. And I totally agree with him.
If I'm not mistaken, it was the most listened to show on CBC. I would go out of my way on a Saturday night to listen to it. I never missed it. You know?
Oh, me too. And in fact, I remember quite often I would be coming home, let's say from a gig or a rehearsal, and Vinyl Tap would be on, and I would take my time on the way home, right? I'd take a few extra detours just so I wouldn't miss any of it.
Tony, I would sit in the driveway waiting to hear what he had to say about a certain record he just played, because he would play some pretty obscure stuff, right? Yeah. And I would be like, I'm not going in the house because I don't want to miss it, you know? And
that's been there too. And so he pushed back and he said, you guys are do what you want, but you're extremely misguided with all this political correctness stuff. And I kind of agree with him. I think that they have just alienated a big chunk of their audience because, I hate to break it to the CBC, but you're not going to attract an under 30 crowd to listen to you, on
a Saturday night.
Well, that's right. Like, that's just not going to happen. And it's like people who are trying to be hip by doing the newest thing all the time, right? I mean, that wears thin awfully fast, doesn't it?
Yeah. And if you hear a noise, folks, it's my cat meowing.
Is your cat in the room?
She is. She's demanding attention. No, I agree, Tony. It's not, they're not going to make up for the loss of listeners. And this was a show that was not offensive to anybody. It was just a straight ahead. If you like music and you wanted to learn about music, you listen to Randy Bachman. And he was fun to listen to. He had great guests on.
Oh, absolutely.
He single-handedly figured out the opening chord to A Hard Day's Night.
That's right. The mystery chord. Yeah.
The mystery chord. And he actually, I believe it was Paul McCartney who gave him credit. Like, he figured it out, Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So anyway, boo on you, CBC. I, very disappointed by that decision. But you know what? Let's move on. So what did you pick as your number one song?
Well, before we move on, I'm going to tell you that the song that knocked him out of number one was John Lennon's first number one in America.
Oh,
believe it or not. First number one anywhere, actually. It was Whatever Gets You Through the Night from his album Walls and Bridges. So I strayed away from our little, I didn't go November, and I'm sorry, I should have, but I went earlier in 74 because you inspired me when you picked BTO, you ain't seen that thing yet. So I picked a song that's a one-hit wonder in North America, a group called Paper Lace. Do you remember The Night Chicago Died?
Oh, it is such a weird song.
It should not have become a number one. I don't know how it did.
I don't know how either, to be honest.
And there's a really, really weird Beatle connection. The guy who co-wrote the song, his name is Mitch Murray. He was one of those, the British equivalent to the Brill Building. And he had written a song called How Do You Do It, which George Martin wanted the Beatles to record as their second single. And of course, the Beatles recorded a version of it, but they hated the song. So they said, look, if we can come up with something better, and they came up with Please Please Me. But Jerry and the Pacemakers recorded How Do You Do It, and it made number one. But fast forward to 74, he co-writes this song with a guy named Peter Callender, who wrote the song Billy Don't Be a Hero. And they have a number one with a very fictional story about Chicago. And by the way, this is my favorite. I love quotations. Mayor Daley of Chicago did not like the song.
Oh, yeah.
And a member of his staff is quoted as saying that Paper Lace should jump in the Chicago River, placing your heads underwater 3 times and only surfacing twice. Pray tell us. Wow.
Well, and like in your notes here, they say, the East Side is mentioned in the song, right, as being this terrible area. And the east side of Chicago is actually quiet residential and predominantly Eastern European neighborhood. A sharp contrast, right, from...
so funny. But I really like the song. It's a terrific song. So, the other day, yesterday, being Sunday, I was in a flea market, and I found the album. I've always had the single, but I actually found the album.
Oh, wow.
$5. I had to buy it. But Paper Lace, they had hits in England. They had 2 other hits in England. 2 top 10s, and they had some top 40. But they reminds me of Seasons of the Sun during the
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Listen,
100%. Yeah, I never thought of that.
I totally thought of Seasons of the Sun when I heard the verse on this, but I think it's fascinating that they had never even been to Chicago when they wrote this.
everything they could do wrong, they did, but it landed a number one song. So I thought, I haven't heard it on the radio in ages. I thought I have to pick this song just because it makes me smile. So
yeah, no, it is. It's an interesting song. You know what? It reminds me of that Billy Joel song, "The Ballad of Billy the Kid," right? Which is Billy admits, it's full of historical inaccuracies and everything, but he just wanted to sing a song about Billy the Kid, right?
Well, sometimes the historical inaccuracies are okay, like Billy the Kid. Or there's other songs too. Johnny Horton, Battle of New Orleans, or even Sing to Bismarck. Sing to Bismarck was so historically wrong. I failed history because of it. But there's all these songs that took an important thing in history or a city, and they made up a story. This was a made-up story, and it's a great song, and I hope people will go and listen to the Spotify playlist because I'm going to put it in there, and it's just fun to listen to again. It really is.
No, absolutely. It made me laugh when I was listening to it earlier today again.
I never made the connection to Seasons in the Sun, but now that you say it, I hear it. And I got to say that it got knocked out of number one by a song that I can guarantee you're not going to hear on the radio these days. You're Having My Baby by
yes.
Paul Anka.
I hate that song.
Well, what kind of line is "You're having my baby"? What a lovely way to say you love me.
It's the most cringeworthy lyric of all time.
And it made number one, Tony.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Collective amnesia, I think people are having now, looking back, boy.
I'm sure people, and I'm sure there's this whole generation who've never heard the song. Look, I'll put it in the Spotify playlist just so you can.
I can guarantee that'll be the one that people, hit the next
fast forward. I didn't mind the song. He had another hit at the same time called "I Don't Like to Sleep Alone." I didn't mind that, but "You're Having My Baby," it's just wrong on so many levels.
Well, that's right. But you know what is right on so many levels is, hey, how's that for a segue? Excuse me, I'm going to wipe away a tear. What's right on so many levels is the Beatles throughout history. And I'm sure you wouldn't come to this recording session without some kind of Beatles connection. So do you want to head back to the present here and do some Beatles talk?
That would be great.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome back, everybody. Of course, it's our Beatle moment. And this is an important day in Beatle history. It's November the 9th, 1961. And this is the day, very important, that Brian Epstein went to the Cavern Club to see the Beatles. The story is that the Beatles had recorded a song in Germany. They backed up a guy named Tony Sheridan. It was called My Bonnie. And on the flip side was a song called The Saints. The problem was that the label said Tony Sheridan with the Beat Brothers. Now, the reason that was because Tony Sheridan wanted to have a backup band name that was consistent. So he had other musicians backing him up. So it was always the Beat Brothers. Also, the name Beatles was very close to the word Beatles, which is German for, penis. And whatever. So when Epstein tried to find this record by the Beatles from Germany, he couldn't find it. He kept getting... So he finally locates a copy on Polydor Records. And then he finds out that the Beatles are performing down the road at the Cavern Club. So he says to his assistant, Alistair Taylor, let's go down and check these guys out. So they went to the Cavern Club. And that was the moment that Brian Epstein approached the Beatles and said, I want to manage you. And he had no experience as a manager. He was running a record store. Well, he was running a section of a department store, a record section, and he wanted to manage the Beatles for whatever reason.
Yeah, he was smitten, right away. I mean, he was just taken with them.
Oh yeah, but the funny thing was when he was asked about them by Alistair, Brian Epstein's quoted as saying they were bloody awful, but absolutely incredible.
What a great quote. And, as much a part of the Beatles story, right? I don't know. Do you think, okay, here's a question for you. We can play the what if game. What if Brian Epstein had never managed the Beatles? Would they have broken out, do you think?
I don't know. He cleaned them up. He organized them, and he got them the attention they needed. He got them the record auditions. He negotiated better gigs for them. Mm-hmm. They may have. I think they might have split up, though. I think that there was a good chance that they may have just called it a day before they made it big as the Beatles. I think that the four members eventually would have made it, but I think he was critical and kind of, not to be too, but when he passed away was the beginning of the end of the Beatles. That's when they started splintering. He held them together. Whatever he had, they respected him. They loved him. Mm-hmm. And I think he loved them back. And he just had such faith in these. He had more faith in them than they had in themselves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He was tireless, and just wanted to get them a deal so badly.
And this past weekend, I don't know if you know this, Tony, they just unveiled the first ever statue of Brian Epstein in Liverpool.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Hopefully we get to see that in person someday. That would be.
We will. We will. First, we got to go to New York. We got to talk about that later. But it's so that was an important day that the Beatles met Epstein. I always play the game as what if Epstein hadn't died? I don't know that the Beatles would have split up the way they did.
With so many what ifs, eh? That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially John Lennon, boy, he took that hard when Epstein passed away. I mean, he was lost for a while, and.
Well, did you ever see the clip of so the Beatles were in Bangor or wherever in Wales? They get off the train, and of course they're press. John is just like, his face is completely pale, and he looks stunned, like he doesn't know what to say. George was okay and Ringo, but John just was devastated, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a very cool connection, Aaron, and what fun this has been, eh? Something a little different for our 30th episode.
Well, I agree, and I thought I brought Brian Epstein into it because he was also instrumental in helping the charts in the UK. He was one of the stores they would call for Liverpool.
Oh, yeah, that's
talk about
very cool.
Segue. I learned from you.
We are getting to be experts at the segue, so say what you will, but we sure know how to do a segue.
Damn straight.
Well, it's been fantastic, and I hope our listeners enjoy today. Thank you so much for supporting the show, folks. Aaron, I hope you have a great week, my friend.
I hope you do too, and I know that's some stuff's going on, so I hope everything works out, and we'll talk next week. Well, actually, I don't know if people at home know this, but we talk every day.
Oh, we do. We talk every day, and you know what? I'm going to let people know. We had to put our cat down earlier today, so actually recording this show has been therapeutic. Nobody likes to lose a pet, right?
No. But we do it in her memory, in her honor.
That's right. So, I'll miss Marley for sure. All right. Well, have a good week, my friend, and we will talk to you soon. Music for today's episode of the Wayback Music Machine podcast was written by Rick N.M.E. The show notes, chart selection, and Spotify playlist were created by Aaron Badgley.
And the artwork, recording, editing, and sound production was done by Tony Stewart. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to tell a friend or two. And don't forget to click follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast player to get the latest episodes automatically.
And we'd love it if you would leave us a review. You can also engage with the show by going on our website and leaving us a voicemail. We may even play your voicemail on an upcoming episode.
Thanks for taking this road trip with us, and we'll see you next time on the Wayback Music Machine podcast.
Hey, turn the radio up. I love this song. The Wayback Music Machine podcast is a Stewie Tunes production.